Hello and welcome back to the Orlando Adventures podcast. I'm your host Russ, and today's episode is the best rest day in Orlando one. So you've heard me talk about rest days an awful lot at this point. Heard me talk about it constantly with regards to whenever I do a trip, I would always try and put a rest day into my trip to Orlando. Let's kind of kick things off with why is it I'm suggesting do a rest day? Why do I even suggest that you might need a rest day at any point? The thing is with a trip to Orlando, as a lot of you will know, it's a tiring trip. There's a lot going on. You do an awful lot. You try and pack so much into generally a short space that there is an awful lot to do in such a congested amount of time that you do need a break from the theme parks, for example, at times. By rest day, as much as anything, like to kind of define what I'm getting at with regards to a rest day and what I mean by rest day, a rest day to me is a day where I don't do the majority of my activities in a park. That's not to say that you don't go to a park in an evening. It's not to say that you don't go to a park in an evening. To be honest, I wouldn't even say that a rest day includes going to a park in the daytime. Personally, I would say that it is a one of those days where you can basically have a break from doing parks, a break from doing the kind of rush of getting up early or doing rope drop or getting in virtual queues or, like any of that kind of stuff. I think it's just a day where you basically just have a break from it, have a break from all of the rush of the theme parks. So do you need a rest day? Well, it's difficult because obviously everybody is different. Everyone is going to be different in whatever trip they do. I believe that having a rest day is really, really beneficial. And I think it's really beneficial to having the best time on your trip. Ultimately, there's a few variables, there's a few factors to take into account when you're thinking about rest days. So if you're going for 7 days, for example, you literally might not have time to fit a rest day in. So at which point, you're probably not going to do it. And the thing is, like, if you're doing anywhere between like 5 and 7 days, I actually wouldn't even suggest doing a rest day. And the reason why is because your time is going to be so limited that the last thing you want to do is sacrifice a day of potentially going into a theme park you wanted to do and missing out on it because you were doing something else. Obviously, if the rest day activities are something that are a priority to you, then absolutely, like, go for it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And don't get me wrong, they're not specifically rest day activities, but I'm just billing them as that because I think we all know that the reason why the majority of us go to Orlando is because we're going to Disney and Universal and Busch Gardens and SeaWorld and beyond. But like the bulk of it is Disney. Let's be absolutely real here. Let's be real. That is the main draw to why we are traveling halfway around the world to go to Orlando. So do I need it? I don't know. It is tough. Like I said, between 5 and 7 days, I don't necessarily think that you need a rest day. If you're going kind of more between a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, 100%. For me, the moment you get to kind of 10 days, I get a rest day in the middle there because it's so much. And I will say this, and trust me, I've done it as well. I've done it both ways. If you go out there for 10 days, for example, and you try and do 10 days of parks straight, you are going to be exhausted. And yes, you might get in all the stuff you wanted to get in, but by the time you get to like day 7, day 8, day 9, like, you're going to be knackered. So at which point are you going to be getting the most out of your trip? Are you going to be enjoying it as much as you potentially could do? That's the difficulty. That is the thing that you've got to weigh up, and it is going to be the for me, one of the main factors as to why I would have a quote unquote rest day, because honestly, you spend so much money, you spend so much time looking forward to this kind of trip that the last thing you want to do is basically like tire yourself out to an extent that you at which point can't even enjoy it as much as you probably could and should anyway. So just give yourself a break. Give yourself an opportunity to just like let your hair down, like, and just chill a little bit. Like we all do it, and I know I've just said this, but like we all kind of build up this hype and this having to plan so much in advance. And trust me, I'm an itinerary guy, as we know from my previous episodes, and the itinerary one, funnily enough. I said that I was never going to say that again. It's ended up happening. But yeah, what I'm getting at is that, like, we try and cram so much in. There is so much to do nowadays, and like with the 4 Disney parks, with the 2 Universal parks, if you want to go to a water park, we put you put Universal's Epic Universe into the mix as well. If you put SeaWorld into the mix, you put Busch Gardens into the mix, you could do 2 weeks of just theme parks alone, and you will be shattered. And again, like, that some people will be fine with that, and some people will be able to do it as well. But it's also worth being a little bit wary, because these kind of holidays, I appreciate, like, quite a few of us go as couples, but some of us go as groups, and some of us go with families as well, and like children and older adults as well. So we do need to be a little bit mindful of those members of our parties as well, because, like, dare I say, and the reason why I say it is because the majority of my listeners and following is probably aged, I'd say between 25 and 45. If I went, like, for example, when I went with my parents last year, like, they had to take more rest days than potentially I did, my partner did, and my brother did, because they do find the parks tiring. They find the long days, and like, they're getting up early, they're going to rope drop, they're doing a full day in the park in the sun, then like staying till park close at times as well. Like, it is a long day. So I might be able to do it, and I can get up the next day and I'll go and do it again. But you know, for them, they may not want to do that, or they may not feel that is sensible, or might try and like get through it as well, and then just not feel great for doing it either. So you just got to be wary of that, and especially with small kids as well. Like, they're going to get tired. They're going to get tired because there's a lot of walking. It's a lot of walking around these parks. So it's just all these variables. It's worth just kind of taking that into account. And I genuinely, I do think that having rest days, it is an absolute win. I think that there's so many fantastic opportunities to do stuff in and around Orlando. And I know I've talked about, like, the best things to do in Orlando, and my list will probably be fairly similar. But the whole point is, I wanted to have a chat about rest days directly, and not just like, what can you do outside the parks? Because just because you can do stuff outside of the parks, and for example, something like Kennedy Space Center, for me, Kennedy Space Center isn't necessarily a rest day, because for me, I think that is still a fairly full-on day. It's a bit of a drive to get there. It is, and it can be a fairly long day as well. So I would count that as more of a standard activity day. So what I've basically done, I've compiled a list of my top 5. So I wanted to do I could have just done a list of rest day activities. It would have ended up being so similar to the best things to do in Orlando one, that I wanted to basically pick my 5 favorite. And I haven't done everything. So there's going to be a few honorable mentions. And like, it's one of the main questions that I always try and ask guests in their episodes. I love finding out what they do outside of the parks as well. The reason being is because it gives us recommendations, and it gives myself recommendations. It gives us all something else to talk about, because there's so many things that people do that not everyone else does. Like, I remember kind of going back to the first guest episode with Parks and Pals. So Parks and Pals, they talked about doing, Chloe and Stephen talked about doing escape rooms. It's something that I've never done in Orlando. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I've never done it. And as a rest day activity, it's probably spot on. Talked to Tom and Jess, Ashley and Emma about going to sports games. Talked to Wizard and Walt last week. So Kim and Dan, we spoke about with regards to, they went to the beer spa. So that, like I said, there's so many different activities that you could basically do in and around Orlando, that it's great to kind of find out these things that everyone else does as well, and you can kind of add them to your lists. And like I said before, no Florida trip is the same. No 2 trips are the same. So you can basically mix and match all of these fun activities and have a different trip every single time. So these are in no particular order, because for me, I probably don't have a number one. I just love doing all of these things. When I get the opportunity to do them, I love doing them. I might not do them every time. I have done a lot of these a few times, and that's why they probably make my top 5, because I obviously have done them at some point, and I've decided, you know what, I've enjoyed that so much that I want to go and do it again. So the first thing on my list, of rest day activities is actually crazy golf. So crazy golf, and I've talked about this in previous guest episodes as well. Crazy golf down International Drive for me, it's spot on. I love going to Pirates Cove. Pirates Cove, it's kind of, if you think of International Drivers, you've got like kind of Universal's end, and then you've got like the McDonald's end. Well, if you keep going past the McDonald's end, and it's not even far beyond that, to be honest with you, you basically get to Pirates Cove Golf. I love it. I think it's spot on. I think that the theming is really, really good. I think it's a fun activity, and whether or not there's like a couple of you, or there's maybe 4 of you, 4, 5, 6, you could basically go around that course, and it's going to take you probably an hour to an hour and a half. It's a fun activity. Honestly, I rate it. I think it's just one of those. It's chilled. It's funny. It's not too expensive. It's probably about $14, I think, for a round, which isn't too bad. And honestly, I've done that course. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've done it at this point. And like, don't be wrong, I rarely do crazy golf when I'm at home. But when I'm in Orlando, it's just always a fun thing to do. And I genuinely, I would always have it on the list of things to do on a rest day. Also, the good thing with it, you can either do it in the daytime, or, you know, if you opt to do it at night as well. Quite a few times I've like gone for dinner down International Drive, for example. It's quite near like Olive Garden, and basically I've gone and done like a nice dinner out, and then you're kind of like, I could still do something this evening. I could still do something because my evening's not done yet. I don't feel too tired. I'm pretty up for going and doing something. And you know, I've gone and done crazy golf. I've done it. I've done it quite a few times. I've done it a first night that I've been there. I've done it some of the last nights as well. Like, yeah, I think it's a versatile activity you can put in with any party you're with. The next thing on my list, sticking with the golf theme, funnily enough, and I have mentioned this one before as well, is Top Golf. Now, Top Golf is on, I think the road is Universal Boulevard. So when you get to like the Universal turning, it basically, there's a crossroads at that end of International Drive. You can either turn down to Universal Studios, or if you went the other way, like kind of in between Endless Summer and Dockside, and keep heading down that road, that's where you basically get to like where Epic Universe is. If you keep going all the way down there, well, about halfway down that road in between the crossroads and Epic Universe is Top Golf. And I think Top Golf basically it's a driving range, to put it simply. It is a golf driving range. You basically, you hire out a bay, and you can basically, you know, I think you can do it with up to 6 people, and it's good because you basically get like a table, you can get chairs, you can basically get a sofa. There's loads of options of what you can do. There's loads of options in terms of like the layout of how you all want to sit and chill and relax. And basically there's loads of games. There's loads of games you can play. So if you're into golf, like, this is good fun. If you're not into golf, it's a laugh. But also, if you're not into golf, the food is really good. I will say that. And it's nice. It's air conditioned. It's relaxed. You basically can sit there and just look out. And honestly, I think that as a bit of a vibe, it's a really, really relaxed, chilled out place, just to be somewhere nice to be. And genuinely, if you are into like hitting some balls down a driving range, it is really good. They got like the Top Tracer kind of technology on it, so you can basically track how far your balls have gone in terms of the yardage. You can check all sorts of stats, which is really cool. And you know, if you're not into golf, it's probably not that interesting. But at the same time, like, I have been with people who potentially weren't that interested in golf, and they've enjoyed it as well. So I really do rate it. And I think that if you haven't done it and you think that you might enjoy just going to hit some balls down a driving range, honestly, I cannot recommend it enough as just a fun activity to go and do. I will say that it can be a little bit more expensive. So the bigger your group is, the cheaper it ends up being if you split the cost. On Tuesdays, I'm pretty sure that Tuesday daytime it is half price. So if there's a time to do it, I would say, and it could be Tuesday all day, I'm not 100% sure, but definitely in the daytime. If you are free and you are having a rest day on a Tuesday, then I would say go then, because that's going to be the time to do it, when it is obviously a little bit cheaper and good way to spend an hour, 2 hours, depending on how long you want to go and hit some balls down the range. The next one on the list, and when I ask everybody in the guest episodes kind of what their favorite thing to do in Orlando is, this one comes up a lot. And this is shopping in Orlando. We love it. We all love it. Like I for years, I genuinely, I remember going back to probably 2008, like, and I would have been fairly young at that point. But that is one of my earliest memories of like going out there to just like have days of shopping. And I really think that having a shopping day as a rest day is such a way to do it. And the reason why I say having a day at it as well is because if any of you have done this before, I think, and I could be wrong here, I think that if you're going to do shopping in Orlando, I think you need a car, because there are so many shops, but they are spread out. So you've got outlets at either end of International Drive. You've got some of the clearance stores kind of heading up International Drive towards the like past Universal end. You've got clearance stores everywhere. You've got factory outlet stores everywhere. You've got Florida Mall. You've got Mall at Millennia. Like there are so many shops. There's so many shopping opportunities that like it does take time. It's gonna take you a bit of time, because if you're gonna go around the majority of the shops as well, and you're gonna go and have a little mooch, you're gonna have a bit of a peruse, you're gonna go and get some snacks, you're gonna go and get some drinks. Like it does end up being a whole day affair, which is absolutely fantastic. But what I wouldn't do personally, if you're kind of going out there to do a bit of shopping, the last thing I would want to do is think that you're going to do it in a couple of hours, because you won't. Like it, unless you know what you're looking for specifically and you're just going to one shop, it's just going to be such a rush, and it's going to be not the most enjoyable experience in my opinion. And obviously the reason why so many people say that shopping is one of their favorite activities is because ultimately it is cheaper than in the UK. It is cheaper than the shops we have over here. They've got some shops and outlets and stuff that we don't necessarily have here, or we don't have that are the price that they are in Orlando. Obviously, the prices in Orlando are a bit cheaper, but the exchange rate from pounds to dollars can make some of the things a real bargain. Obviously, exchange rate isn't as good as what it used to be. So in terms of trying to find bargains, it's not as good as it once was, but it is cheaper. And I will say, like, in my opinion, it is cheaper than buying stuff over here. So if you can basically save your shopping up a little bit and then go out to Orlando and do it, like, for me, it is the way to go. To be fair, I went through years of my tradition being actually having shopping day as day one. So we never used to do a park day one at all. We always used to do a shopping day. And the reason why is obviously because we would be tired from the flight over. We just kind of didn't want to go straight into a park and be like exhausted. We want to go into it fresh. We wanted to go into the parks feeling good, feeling ready to go, instead of feeling like exhausted after the first day of kind of traveling. Granted, if you're not there for a long time again, then I don't mean that's the way to do it. But that is the way that we always used to do it. And to be fair, I would basically do zero clothes shopping for like an entire year in the UK, and I would basically go out to Orlando with an empty case. I would force myself to go shopping. So I would take one change of clothes. So I've got my travel day, and then I can change for the next day, and then I have nothing else. And I'll have my full case, and I'd normally put my hand luggage case into that case so that I can basically return with two cases without having to pay extra as well. That's how I used to do it. The deals aren't quite as good as what they once were, so it's not quite as good as doing that anymore. However, at the same time, like, the same still applies. Like if you can wait until your next trip to not buy any clothes in the UK, then save it until you get there. But yeah, that was one of the things that I always used to do. I think that genuinely going to some of these shops, you can find some real bargains. And I know on my last trip, I basically, to give you a little bit of a tangent story, I was looking for some Levi's, and I always remember years ago, like Levi's in Orlando being super cheap. And normally you used to be able to get deals. Like, I could be wrong on this. I'm sure you used to be able to get like 2 for $60, which is absolutely ludicrous. And I'm pretty sure on my last trip, I saw 2 for $80. I'm sure it was 2 for 80. And I saw it on like day 2. And I was like, you know what? I'll get them another time. Lesson learned. I went back, or I went to a Levi's. I think I went to 3 different Levi's shops, and I think I went on about 3 or 4 different occasions as well. So we're going to various ones in the same journey, and I never saw that deal again. So lesson learned: if you see a deal and you think that it's good value, just do it. Just do it. And it's the same. It's the same in, like, if you're in Disney and you're trying to get like a lounge fly, and you see, I don't know, you see a really cool lounge fly, or you see a cool Spirit jersey or something like that. Like, if you see it and you really like it, and it's in the budget as well, if it's in the budget, then get it, because you'll kick yourself if you don't see it again. And I genuinely did. The whole of that trip, I was so annoyed that I just didn't go and grab these pairs of jeans. And I know it's like super dumb, but at the same time, if I came back to the UK, it'd be like £80 a pair. So should have done it. Should have done it. But never mind. Never mind. Next time, hopefully. But I know I also mentioned this. I think I might have mentioned it in the Ashley and Emma episode. I'm not sure. But I know I've definitely spoke to Ashley about it. Going out to Orlando and buying trainers as well. Like, it's the one. To be fair, like, up International Drive, there's the Adidas, I think, their clearance store and a Nike clearance store. If you're into your trainers, like, that's the place to go, because I genuinely think that you can find some actual bargains, and there's a massive range as well. So as long as you're prepared to spend like a bit of time rifling through all of the shoe boxes to find the ones that you like, then that is an absolute shout, in my opinion. The next activity on my list for a rest day is the airboat ride. This is one of these that I've gone on about an awful lot. I've gone on about a few things on this channel a few times. Airboats, Velocicoaster, Doctor Doom. I think I'm probably turning into the airboat, Velocicoaster, Doctor Doom guy pretty quickly. Probably just the Doctor Doom guy. I'm one of very few people who enjoys it. So when I found that Kimberly from Kimberly's Journey enjoys Doctor Doom as much as I do, I was so happy, so happy. But yeah, getting back on track. Airboat ride for me, like, is always been good. I think I've done it 7 times maybe at this point. Every time I've done it, I've enjoyed it. I will say that I've done, I think, 4 or 5 different ones, and I think the best one might be Boggy Creek. Boggy Creek is about 30 to 35 minutes from kind of International Drive area. Just to give you an idea, you're likely to need a car, but I think that it is probably one of the best ones. I found that the skippers are really good. I've always found that whenever we've gone out, we have encountered gators, we've encountered other wildlife, loads of birds, kind of turtles, tortoise. I'm not sure which one it is. But yeah, like, and the skippers have always been so informative. They talk really well. They're engaging, and genuinely, like, I think I normally do an hour one, but I think you can do longer, to be fair, and you can do like nighttime ones and stuff as well. But for me, as a rest day activity, I think it's so good. And the thing is, it's not like super long. Like, obviously, I appreciate you got to drive there, then you do a bit of waiting around probably as well, and then you, obviously, by the time you drive back, like, it's probably a mornings or an afternoons activity, which is great, which is absolutely what you want. You want to go and have something which is chilled. Like, obviously, you're just driving down there, you're going to go and sit on a boat, you're going to get driven around, you're going to go and see some cool stuff, and hopefully take a load of pictures and take some memories from it as well. I genuinely do rate it as one of the best things to do in Orlando. It's one of those that I don't think you can do in many places in the world. So if you can get the opportunity to go and do it, genuinely, I cannot speak highly enough of it. If you haven't done it, please go and do it. It's not that expensive. I think that it's generally, depending where you get your tickets, probably about $40 to $50 a head, which I think, considering what it is, I think it is actually a fairly well priced activity. I think that is actually quite good value for money. So if you don't enjoy it, like I've gone on about it enough, you can come for me at this point. I mean, that's fair. But genuinely, I don't know anyone who's done it who hasn't enjoyed it. The next thing on my list, and this wraps up the list, I'm just doing a top 5, is to go to an American cinema. So I think I might have mentioned this at some point before. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that just going and seeing a film, going and watching a film. I'm a film guy. We might have got this at this point. Like I'm into my films, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so into Disney. It's one of the reasons I'm so into Universal. I love films. Okay, like I'm biased because I am a total film guy. I've studied film. I've studied media. I'm a cinema card holder. I love films. We watch a lot of films between myself and Annie. Obviously, we're big Marvel fans. We're big Star Wars fans. Whenever any big film comes out at the cinema, we'll always go and watch it like day of release or the day after. If a Marvel film comes out, you can guarantee we'll go and watch it twice as well. You can see I'm wearing a Deadpool t-shirt. I'm on the Deadpool train at the moment. Obviously, when this comes out, I'd have seen Deadpool twice already. I'm a film guy. So if you get the opportunity, or if I get the opportunity to go and watch a big film in Orlando, I'm going to go and do it. I've only ever watched one film out there, and you know what? I loved it. I am super biased again because it is my favorite, or one of my favorite films of all time. I was lucky enough to go and watch Endgame in Orlando, and genuinely, just being in the cinema, I loved it. Obviously, in terms of watching the film, it's not a huge amount different than over here. The screens we've got here are some of them are fantastic. Like, that's not the issue. What I'm saying is that, like, you go to an American cinema and it just feels unique. Like, I'll never forget. And like, it was unique to me because I didn't grow up in America or anything like that. And I got a popcorn and I went over to this little kind of table. And then I was looking at this pump thing, thinking like, what is this? What is this? And it was liquid melted butter to pump onto your popcorn, which to like, what, mad? Like, what? Who just like pumps liquid fat onto their? And I did it. Trust me. I just thought it was amazing, and like just being in there, and like every seat in the cinema was like this massive recliner. You got like a table essentially with your seat, and I know you can get that kind of thing in this country as well. I know that like some of the big Odeons and IMAXs and stuff have gone to that style as well, with like their super premium style seating and tickets. But doing that in America for me was a real highlight. It really, really was. I honestly can't recommend it enough. And I know there's some really cool cinemas kind of located around as well. There's definitely loads of places around. I know that there's a cinema in City Walk as well. I went to actually one down International Drive, kind of near, I think Icon Park. I think that's the one it's called. I'm pretty sure I went to one there, and it was a massive cinema, and also it wasn't an expensive activity as well. Like, I think I did it on a day that it was basically the weather was really bad, so I needed to go and find an activity to do, and it was nice to just go and sit down for a few hours, and kind of following on from that, like that sums up my list. But like I said at the start, just because it's a rest day doesn't mean you can't do a park. But for me, I just wouldn't do the park as the main activity of the day. The amount of times I've done a rest day and then gone to, and I know I talk about this one a lot, but gone to like Islands of Adventure at night, like that is one of my favorite things to do on a rest day, because I feel relaxed. I feel like I've got my energy back. I feel chilled. I feel like ready to go. And you just dip into Islands of Adventure, for example, go in there and go, you know what, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do Jurassic Park River Adventure, I'm going to do Spider-Man, and I'm going to do Hagrid's. So I'm just going to go in there, I'm going to do 3 rides, I'm going to come out, I'm going to grab myself a big pink box from Voodoo Donut, or I might go and get a Panda Express or a Cold Stone Creamery or whatever else it is you want to get. And for me, that is one of the perfect ways to round off a rest day. Obviously, there are the other options of going and seeing fireworks shows and stuff at Disney as well, or you can see the cinema spectacular. I can't remember what it's called at Universal. Yeah, the options are endless, and we know this. We know that there are so many options at this point in and around Orlando. But yeah, rest days. Rest days. That sums up rest days. That sums up what I would do on a rest day. It sums up what I think are the best activities to do on a rest day. I'd love to know what you all do as well. Like whether or not you all put a rest day into your trip, whether or not you try and itinerize one, whether or not you basically leave it until you're at the point where you're like, you know what, I feel exhausted. I don't feel like I can do a park tomorrow, for example. I don't feel like I'm I don't think I've got the energy levels to go and do another park tomorrow. It'd be really interesting to know. It'd be really interesting to find out what all of your favorite rest day activities are as well. As ever, like, and I know I say this every episode, I'm going to keep saying it. So, like, I appreciate you all. Like, I appreciate you all so much. Genuinely, this channel is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I love doing this, and I'm sure it comes across in the podcast. But like, I am obviously so passionate about Orlando, but I'm so passionate about interacting with all of you guys as well. I'm so passionate about talking about Orlando and my experiences, but also finding out about your experiences. I love the guest episodes. I love them so much. I like the opportunity to sit down and chat about Orlando with all of you. Honestly, it blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind that week in, week out, I get to do this as a fun activity, as a hobby. But yeah, we've got Project X coming up end of September. It's exciting. It is exciting. It's certainly exciting for me. I think it's really cool. I think you're all gonna like it. We'll see. We'll see. It's at the end of the day, it's a good bit of fun. It's a good bit of fun from my point of view. And again, I appreciate you all listening to the podcast. I appreciate you all watching the podcast, sharing it. If you're listening to it right now, share it on Instagram. I'll always share it back. I always will. I'll always give the shout out back. So thank you once again, and I will speak to you all in the next one.